We begin the Gemara today on Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Beis, from where it says Rabbi Yirmiyah Omar, about 5 or 6 lines from the bottom of the page. So Rabbi Yirmiyah is going to now give another explanation for a brayse that we had in Daf Lamed Gimel Amud Aleph, where it said Nosnoi bekalkala. He put his eid of tchumen in a kalkala, in a basket. V'toloi be'ilon. He hung it on a tree. Afilu l'mayla masar tfachim, higher than 10 tfachim. Eiruvin, it's a good Eiruvin, even though the place where the basket is above 10 tfachim, which is in a Rishus HaYachid, and the person is on the bottom in a Rishus HaRabim. It's still a good Eiruvin. So the Gemara before brought a teretz from the name of Ravina. Now a new teretz in the name of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Yirmiyah Omar Shani Kalkola. This case with the basket is different than the usual case where we say that if it's above 10 tfachim, it's not a good Eiruvin. Hayol v'yachal in taisa ulahavia l'toich asara. So this basket is right by above 10 tfachim, but if you tilt it over a little bit, part of the basket will be below 10 tfachim, and then you'll be able to take out the food that you need for your Eruv. And this is allowed even on Shabbos, because if you take the entire basket from higher than 10 tfachim and bring it below into the 10 tfachim, it's not allowed. But if you just tilt the basket and part of it remains above 10 tfachim, so then it's okay. The Rishonim here bring the Gemara in Shabbos that we learned, Eged Keli Shmei Eged, that since part of the Keli is still connected to the Rishus where it was, so therefore there was no Hitzah. You didn't take it out from Rishus HaYachid. So therefore over here, you don't have to bring the food into the place where your Shvisa is. You're in the Rishus HaRabim, your food is in the Rishus HaYachid, but you can tilt it by Ben Hashmashas when you'll have to have the Eruv to be fit for eating. You can tilt it and bring it to yourself. So even if you didn't tilt it, and it's there above in the Rishus HaYachid, but because you could tilt it and bring it this way, it's okay. Zok the Gemara Yosef Rav Papa v'ka'ama lahosh maita. Rav Papa was sitting and he said this answer of Rabbi Yirmiyah. Eisvei Rav Bar Shval Rav Papa. So Rav Bar Shval asked Rav Papa. And he brings a brayse. It says, this is a brayse that speaks about a case where you have Yom Tif, and then right afterwards on Sunday you have Yom Tif on Friday, and then you have Shabbos. So, you're making an Erev Tchumen, you have to have the food there on Yom Tif, and you have to have the food there on Shabbos. If you put it down there on Yom Tif, then it might not be there for Shabbos. So what do you do? Keit Saduaisa. What does the person do? Melichai Barishain. You take it there on the first day on Yom Tif, Umach Shechalov, and you stay there until it's dark, and you have the food there. And then after when it gets dark, you can bring it back home. Ubaloi b'sheni mach shechalov, and then you bring it back for the second day for Shabbos. So you're bringing it back before Shabbos. In other words, a mach shechalov means that you bring it on Erev Yom Tov by Ben Hashmashas, and you make sure that the food stays there for Ben Hashmashas of Yom Tov, and then you can take it back. As long as the food was there Ben Hashmashas, you can take it back. And then you come on Yom Tiv, you bring the food back and you leave there the food for Ben Hashmashas of Shabbos. And then V'oichloi, you can eat up the food. You're not going to be able to carry it back. Now it's Shabbos. So you eat up the food. Ubaloi, you come back. So you have the food brought there for Yom Tiv and Shabbos. But now, according to Rabbi Yirmiyah, Amai, why is it necessary for you to bring the food there and make sure you bring it there for Yom Tiv and for Shabbos? Name it, why wouldn't we say, Kivin di iboy amtuya, motzi mimtile? So since if you would want to bring it there, he has the ability to bring it there, afagavdulay ante, so even if he didn't actually bring the food there, command ante dami. It should be as if you brought it there. So there's 2 pshatim how to learn the question of the Gemara. Rashi's pshat is, the Gemara is actually asking a question on every single Erev Tchumen. Whenever you have to make an Erev Tchumen, so we learned until now, you have to bring the food there. The food has to be there for Ben Hashmashas in order for the Erev to take effect. But what did Rabbi Yirmiyah say before? You have the food that's in a Rishus HaYachid in a basket, above 10 tfachim. You're on the bottom, in the Rishus HaRabim, and it's by Ben Hashmashas, it's not in the same Rishus. However, because you could have tilted it, and you would have been able to take it out at Ben Hashmashas, we rely just on that. So the Gemara says, so you rely on the fact that you could tilt it, and even if you're not in the same Rishus, it's okay. So then say the same thing by every Erev. Keep the Erev in your house. The food doesn't have to be brought there, but because I could have brought it, so therefore I could rely on that food. That's Rashi's pshat. Now the thing is, all the Rishonim ask on Rashi In the case where he could have tilted the food in the basket that's above 10 tfachim, as I explained before, he could tilt it in a way that it would be allowed to be tilted during Ben Hashmashes. Half of the basket remains in the Rishus HaYachid, he tilts it and takes out the food, and it's okay. But over here, the Gemara is asking regarding every Eruv. You have food in your house, and you want to make an Eruv somewhere in the Rishus HaRabim. So what is it saying? Since you could bring the food there, so therefore it should be as if you brought the food, but you're not allowed to bring the food at Ben Hashmashes. You're being mitzi from your house into a Rishus HaRabim. So it's very difficult to understand Rashi's pshat. So some of Harshim say that Rashi learns that the question of the Gemara is based on the fact that the food does not have to be brought dafka by Ben Hashmashes, but the very fact that you could even bring the food before Ben Hashmashes, that should suffice. It has to be there for Ben Hashmashes, but I could have brought it before Ben Hashmashes. If I'm relying on the fact that I can tilt the basket by Ben Hashmashes and take out the food, so why not rely by every Eruv on the fact that even though I didn't actually bring the food, I had kavanah to be shavis in that place, but I didn't bring the food there, but I could bring the food out of Shabbos in the place where I had kavanah to be, so could bring the food out of Shabbos should also be good enough. That's Rashi's pshat. So according to Rashi, the fact that we bring up this braisa here that talks about Yom Tov, that's on Friday, and then Shabbos, and that he goes there and he brings the food there, there's nothing unique about this braisa that the Gemara is asking the question from. It's just that since in this braisa Rashi says, it says beferish may lichoy that you have to bring it there, so therefore the Gemara is bringing this braisa. But really it's a question from every single Erev Tchuma where the halach is that you have to bring the food there. Taisus' pshat is, no, it's this braisa where there's a question. Because over here, we're talking about Yom Tov. And regarding Yom Tov, you are allowed to carry on Yom Tov. So if you're telling me regarding the basket that you could tilt it during Ben Hashmashes in a way that it's allowed, even though you didn't actually tilt it, but you rely on the fact that you could have tilted it, that it's a good Eidov, so an Eidov regarding Yom Tov, why are we saying that you have to go and bring the food there if you decide that that's where you're being shavis in your mind? Even if you didn't actually bring the food on Yom Tov, you're allowed to bring the food. So it should be a good Eidov. That's the Gemara's question. And for the Gemara, Rab Zeire, Gzeire Mishum Yom Tov Shechaliyas Acha Shabbos. The reason why you have to bring food is because it's a Gzeira of Yom Tov that falls out after Shabbos. So Shabbos, you can't bring the food there. You have to be able to bring the food there before. According to Rashi, you have to bring the food there before Yom Tov during the day, and now it's Shabbos, you can't bring the food there. According to Taisvis, it's Shabbos Ben Hashmashes. It's Ben Hashmashes of Shabbos, you can't bring the food there then. So therefore, it's not an option to make the Eidov by saying that you could have brought it there. You can't, it's Shabbos. So because in that case you can't rely on the fact that you could have brought it there, so therefore the Chachamim said that by every single Eidov you should actually bring it there, and we don't rely on the fact that you could have brought it there. The Gemara asks now another question on what Rav Yirmiyah said. Eisvei, we learned in the Braisa, Niskaven Lishbeis B'Rishus HaRabim. Your kavanah is to set up a place where you're going to be for the Eidov and Rishus HaRabim. When you place your Eruv in a wall below 10 Tfachim, Eruv, it's a good Eruv. You're in the Rishus HaRabim, the Eruv is in the Rishus HaRabim. Actually, the Eruv is in a place which is a Carmelis. But we learned before, we followed the opinion of Rebbe that says that during Ben Hashmashes, something which is Asam D'Rabbanan is okay. So you can take it from that area in the wall that's below 10 Tfachim, a Carmelis, to where you are. If it's L'mayla Miyut Tfachim, if it's above 10 Tfachim, it's an Rishus HaYachid, ein Eruv Yeruv. It's not a good Eruv. Niskaven lishbeis b'roish hashoivech. If a person has in mind to be on top of a shoivech, of a bird nest, in the space, the person can be there. Or b'roish hamigdal, or the place where he's going to be will be on top of a closet. We're talking over here in the Rishus HaRabim, on top of a closet. So we're talking about a migdal and a shoivech. How tall is it? L'mayla miyut tfachim. If it's tall 10 tfachim, so then Eruv Yeruv. Then it's a good Eruv. Lamata miyut tfachim ein Eruv Yeruv. Below 10 tfachim, then it's not a good Eruv. So actually, what the Bryce is talking about when it makes a distinction between above 10 tfachim and below 10 tfachim is the shelf inside where you're putting the food. Where are you putting the food? In the shelf inside the closet or on the shelf inside of this shoivech? If you're putting it in a place which is higher than 10 tfachim, then it's a good Eruv because you're on top, which is in a Rishus HaYachid, above 10 tfachim. The Eruv you're putting in a shelf is also above 10 tfachim, so it's good. But if you're putting it in a shelf that's below 10 tfachim, that's a Carmelis. That's a Carmelis. It's in a space which is in a Rishus HaRabim, but it's above 3 tefachim from the ground on a space that has dalet al dalet, that's a karmelis. You can't take the eruv from a karmelis into where your shvisa will be, which is on top of the closet or on top of the shayvich, which is above 10 tefachim. Fragt the Gemara, but if we're going to say what Rabbi Yirmiyah says, that I could tilt and I could, so then why don't we apply that same concept here as well? Why wouldn't we say here, this closet or this shayvich, you can tilt it on its side. If you tilt it on its side, so now your shvisa won't be above 10 tefachim, your shvisa will be on top of this closet, on the side of the closet now, which you tilted over, it'll be below 10 tefachim. So now you and the Eruv will be in the same place, below 10 tefachim. So why can't you rely on the fact that you could tilt it over, even if you didn't? But Rabbi Yirmiyah says, we can rely on the fact that he could have tilted the basket. Rabbi Yirmiyah, hacha b'migdal mesumer. This price is talking about a closet that's been nailed in. It's not an option to tilt it over. B'migdal mesumer askina. Rava says, afile teime b'migdal sheina mesumer. You don't have to say that it's talking about a closet that's been nailed in. V'hacha b'migdal aruch askina. It's a very tall closet. Di'i mamti leporte. If you're going to tilt it over, so what happens? Ozul, or the Bach adds, nafik le chutz la'arba ames. So the food that you placed on a shelf that was before within your arba ames where you're going to be will now be tilted over, and it's going to end up being 4 ames away from you. So you can't rely anymore on that eruv. If you're in one place and the eruv is out of your dal ames, you can't rely on it. So therefore, it's not an eitzah to tilt it over. Now the Gemara asks a question on the Braisa itself. So we're talking about a person that has kavanah that he's going to be on top of this closet, and he puts his food for the eruv in a shelf inside the closet. Hey Chidomi, what's the case here? How is he planning on accessing his food? If his plan was that there's an opening on top of the closet and he can stick his hand in over there, or actually then not only stick in his hand, there's an opening and he has a rope and he can stick the rope down and tie the food and bring it up. That's how he was going to access his food. If that's the case, so then you can bring the food from the inside and bring it up. So what should be the problem with the eruv, even if the eruv is below 10 tvachim and he's above 10 tvachim? He's just bringing it from the inside. He doesn't have to go through the Rishus Harabim. That says the Gemara, the lesle kafsa umasna. So the case here is that this person doesn't have an opening, he doesn't have a rope, and that he can't bring it from the inside. Going back to what we learned in our Mishnah, you place your eruv in a boyer, in a pit that's deep, 100 amas, it's a good eruv. Hi boyer, the koi heicha. This pit, where is it? If the pit is not a Rishus HaYachid, pshita, obviously it's a good eruv. Rishus HaYachid, oyla adler rekia. A Rishus HaYachid extends upward all the way to the sky. And just as it extends upward, a Rishus HaYachid extends downward as well. So if you have a pit inside a Rishus HaYachid and it's 100 amas deep and that's where you put your eruv, it's all still part of the Rishus HaYachid. So if you're going to be shavis, your eruv is in the Rishus HaYachid and you place the food inside the pit, it doesn't matter how deep it is. You and the eruv are all in the same Rishus. The El or the Koi Rishus Harabim. So the case over here is you have a pit in the Rishus Harabim. So now the question is, the Neskaven Lishpes Heiche. So you're placing your food inside the pit, and where are you going to be? If your kavanah was that you're going to be above, outside of the pit, so the Bach adds Amai. Why is it a good eruv? Hu b'mokim echad ve'eruve b'mokim acher. You're in the Rishus Harabim, and your food is inside the eruv, which is a Rishus HaYachid. And if your kavanah was that you're going to be shavis, you're going to go inside the pit, and that's where you're going to have your space for the eruv tchumen together with your food that's inside there, pshita. So then obviously it's okay. What's the chiddush of the Mishnah? Hu ve'eruve b'mokim echad. You and your eruv are all in the same place. So the answer is the koi b'karmelis. Here we're talking about a pit that is in an open field in a karmelis. His kavanah is that he's going to be on the top, outside of the pit. And your food is going to be inside the pit, which is a Rishus HaYachid. So you're in a karmelis, and your food, again, you're in a karmelis, yes, and your food is in a boyer, which is a Rishus HaYachid. V'rabihi, and it follows the opinion of Rebbe. The Oma kol davashu mishum shvus legazru alav ben hashmashis. As we learned before, anything that's only asim midrabanan, there's no gzeira to do it ben hashmashis. So ben hashmashis, you could access this food of the Eiruvin, and therefore it's a good Eiruvin. Zakte Mishneh nosnoi beroish hakone. You put an Eiruvin on top of a branch, or beroish hakundis, or on top of a wooden pole. Bisman shu talosh v'nots. If this is something which is detached from the ground, and you just stick it into the ground, afilu gavoya kufama. Even if it's tall 100 ames, hareza Eiruvin. It's a good Eiruvin. So the Gemara now will explain what the pshat in this. Rami le'ravada bar masna le'rove tolush v'nots in. So what does it say over here? That if it's detached and it's stuck into the ground, then it's okay. Loit tolush v'nots, but if it's not detached and stuck it into the ground, loit, then it's not a good Eiruvin. Mani, according to who does this go? Rabbanan, it follows the opinion of the Rabbanan. The Amri kol davashu mishum shvos gazru olav ben hashmashis. That if there's a shvos, there is a problem to do this ben hashmashis, right? Because what's the issue if it's not detached? So then it's a tree. It's a branch of a tree, and you're not allowed to use it during ben hashmashis. It's a gzeirim with the Rabbanon. According to the opinion of the Rabbanon, something which is a shvos, you're not allowed to use ben hashmashis. But according to Rebbe, as we learned before, you can use this tree during ben hashmashis even if it's attached to the ground, because he holds there's no shvos by ben hashmashis. So now it comes out that this Mishnah, if we're saying that it's only if it's talush v'nots, so then it's that's as the Mishnah said, talush v'nots. So this is following the opinion of the Rabbanan. But before we said in the previous Mishnah, when we were talking about a tree, that if you place something in a tree below 10 tfachim, that it's good for a native, even though the tree is attached to the ground. So what did we say over there? That follows the opinion of Rebbe that ben hashmashis you can do a shvus. So Reisha Rebbe v'Sefer Rabbanan. Are we going to say that the Reisha goes according to Rebbe and the Sefer goes according to the Rabbanan? Malay. So he answered him. Kvar Rami le Rami bar Chomel le Rav Chisda. Rami bar Chomel already asked this question to Rav Chisda, and Vishani le Rav Chisda answered yes. Reisha Rebbe v'Sefer Rabbanan. The previous Mishnah is Rebbe and this Mishnah is the Rabbanan. Ravina says there's a difference between a tree that we spoke about before and this kona, which is a small branch. What's the difference? Kula Rebbe. It's all according to Rebbe. The Seifer Gzeira Shema Yiktoim. The Seifer is talking about a branch which is a smaller branch, and Rashi says here there's a bigger Gzeira. It's softer and it's easier for a person to break off something. Here everybody would agree that we're geyser for this. Even according to Rebbe, we're geyser for this, even ben hashmashis, and you're not allowed to place the Eiruvin there. Before we were talking about a tree. Over there, Rebbe says that there's no issue. Sagt the Gemara, Hahu pulmese da soil in Nerda. There was a pulmese, soldiers, that came to the city of Nerda. Amalu Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman says to his students, Puku, let's go out in the city. There's too many people here, and we're not going to have space. So let's go out. Avidu kevushi kavshi ba'agma. So you have the reeds that are growing outside of the city. So we'll go over there and bend down these reeds in a way that will be placed to sit. And tomorrow, Shabbos, we'll be able to go and sit there and learn. So the question is, so Rami Bar Chama asked Rav Nachman, how could you do this? It said here in the Mishnah, Tolush v'nots in. You could place your Eirov on a branch which is detached. That's allowed. Loit Tolush v'loy nots. Loit, but if it's not detached, you're not allowed. So how are you allowing to use these reeds that are still attached to the ground, and you're going to bend them and you're going to be able to sit there on Shabbos? Malay. So Rav Nachman answered, Hassam in the Mishnah be'uzradin. It's talking about a branch that is hard enough that it's similar to a tree. And over there were geyser. And what are we talking about over here? In the case where he allowed his students to make a place to sit down, we're talking about reeds that are still green and like vegetables. For like vegetables, their Chachamim did not make this gzeira. For branches that are a bit stronger already and they're similar to a tree, they are a little bit harder, over there Chachamim will geyser that you might come to cut it off. Where do I see that there's a difference in the status of a reed if it's still green and soft like a vegetable and it's hard and it could be compared to a tree? Where do I see that we make this distinction? The Tanya, we learned the halacha regarding klayim. The halacha of klayim is that it's a vegetable that you're not allowed to mix in a vineyard. So the Braisa says, hakonin, the reeds, ha'atodin, va'hegin, min ilonhen. These things are all a type of tree. Ve'enon kalayim bekeren. And therefore, it's not kalayim, it's not vegetables that would be kalayim in the vineyard. V'tanya dachbar in a different brayso we learned hakonim, va'akidon, va'horbonin, min yereken. They are all vegetables. Ve'en kalayim bekeren. It is considered to be kalayim. So in one brayso it says that konim is like a tree, and another it says that it's a vegetable, and it's kalayim. So the answer is kan Ela shmamino, kan be'uzrodin, kan b'shein uzrodin. It depends if it's a reed that's still green and very soft like a vegetable, so then it's going to be klayim. If it's already hard and similar to a tree, so then it's not going to be klayim. So we see that there's a difference in the status of this reeds and depending on how mature it is, how much it grew. Shmamino. So this is the proof of this distinction. Now the Gemara just goes back to another detail that we learned in these braises, and one of them it said kido. Kida is a kind of spice. Kida min yereku, is this considered to be a vegetable? Vatnan ein markivin pagom al gabi kida. Kida levana. You're not allowed to graft pagom, which is a vegetable, with kida levana because we consider kida levana to be a tree. Mipnei shehu yerek be'ilon. The issue is that you're grafting a vegetable with a tree. So it clearly says that kida levana is a tree, not a vegetable. Papa, kida lechud, the kida levana lechud. There's kida, which is a vegetable, and there's kida levana, which is considered to be a tree. Sagt the Mishnah, nasnai ben migdal, you place your Eiruvin inside of a closet, and you lock it, and you forgot, and you lost the key. Arei ze Eiruv. It's still a good Eiruv. This Gemara will explain. Rabbi Eliezer says, if you don't know that the key is there in the place that you put it, it's not a good Eiruv. You have to know where the key is in order for it to be a good Eiruv. Fragt Gemara, so now according to the Tanakame, why is this a good Eiruv? Hu b'mokem echad, ve'Eiruvi b'mokem acher. He is in one place, he's in the Rishus HaRabim, and the food is inside of this closet, and he can't access it. So how is it a good Eiruv? Answers the Gemara. Actually, Rashi says we're talking about a migdal that's inside the Rishus HaYochid. But the point still is that you're in one place and the food is locked up inside the closet and you can't access it. So the Gemara, Rav Shmuel Damri Tarvayu. So Rav Shmuel both explain, Hacha b'migdal sheleveina maskinan. This is a migdal that's built out of bricks. And you could get it out, according to Rab Meir. Rab Meir says you could get your food out even without a key. Amar, you could remove a brick and take out the food that's inside. We learned in the Mishnah regarding Yom Tov, Bayis Shemilo, Peiros, Sosum, a house that you filled up with fruits and it's closed up, and V'nifcha. So the Tanakama says, and a brick fell down on its own, and now you have an opening. So you're allowed to go in from that area that it opened up on its own and take out the food. Rab Meir says, you're allowed to remove a brick and go and take it. So the same thing over here, we're saying that it's talking about a migdal, a closet that's made out of bricks, and therefore you're allowed to remove a brick according to Rab Meir. The only heter of Rab Meir was in a case where it's bricks that make this migdal without any cement. If it's cemented and you can't remove it, you can't be seiser that on Yom Tov. If it's without any cement, you're allowed to remove it. Answers the Gemara. Over here as well, Hachanami ba'avida delivna. That's what our Mishnah is talking about. It's a brick closet without any cement, and therefore you could remove a brick even if you lost the key. So the point of here is that it's a specific type of closet where this is allowed. But Rab Zeide said, B'Yom Tiv Amru. This whole heter of removing a brick to take the food which is inside was only a heter, they said, for Yom Tiv, but not on Shabbos. Avaloi b'Shabbos. And for the Gemara, Hachanami b'Yom Tiv. We're going to have to say that our Mishnah here is also speaking only about Yom Tiv. For the Gemara, how could you say so? It says in a Braisa regarding our Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer says regarding the key that was lost, if it was lost somewhere in the city, Eiruvin, it's a good Eruv. As the Gemara will explain, if it's lost somewhere in the city, so you can take it from one courtyard to another courtyard, or from one rooftop to another rooftop, without going into the Rishus Rabbim, and bring the key. And this follows the opinion of Rab Shimon that we had many times before. Rab Shimon holds anything that's in one courtyard, when Shabbos came in, you can take it from one courtyard to another without an Eruv Chatzeris. From a house to a courtyard you can, but from one courtyard, from one rooftop to another, you can pass things over that way without an Eruv. So if it's found in the city in a way that you can bring it from one courtyard to another, it's not a problem. So therefore you can bring your key. But if you lost your key in a field, in an open area, which is a Carmelis, then any Eruv. Then it's not going to be a good Eruv. You're not allowed to bring it. Now, if this is talking about Yontiv, Mali Sadan, Yontiv you're allowed to carry from either place. Why is he making this distinction of in a city or in a field? Rashi here says that this is a third opinion. Because in our Mishnah we had a Tanakama that says if you lost your key, your Eruv is a good Eruv either way. Rabbi Eliezer said that you have to know where the key is. You have to have the key in order to be able to use it. And here in the Braisa it's saying that Rabbi Eliezer makes a distinction, whether it's in the city, whether it's in the field. So it could be a third opinion. Or perhaps Rashi says Rabbi Eliezer in the Braisa is explaining what Rabbi Eliezer said in the Mishnah. Either way, the question is, it's pretty clear that we're not talking about Yontif here. Yontif, there's no distinction between a city or a field. You're allowed to carry either way. Answers the Gemara, so we're going to have to clarify this Braisa here as follows. There's missing over here in the Lashon of the Braisa, and this is what it has to say. Nasnai b'migdal, you placed it inside of a closet, v'noal b'fanav, and you locked it, v'avad ha'mafteach, and you lost the key, harei zeh eruv. So it's a good eruv. It's only a good eruv on Yom Tov, because then, according to Rab Meir, you can take off a brick and take out something from inside. But on Shabbos, it's not going to be a good eruv. Now, Nimtza. Now the Braisa goes back to Shabbos. Nimtza mafteach bein be'ir bein b'sodeh ein eruv. The Tanakama says that on Shabbos, whether your key is somewhere in the city or somewhere in the field, it's not a good eruv. It's only a good eruv on Yom Tov, but not on Shabbos. That even on Shabbos, it depends. If your key is somewhere in the city that you could pass it over from one courtyard to another, eruv. Sadeh, if it's found in an open field in a Carmelis, and on Shabbos, ein eruv, then it's not a good eruv. So the Gemara now explains, which part of it I mentioned before. Be'ir eruv, if your key is found somewhere in the city on Shabbos, then it's going to be a good eruv, you can pass it over. Rab Shimon, this follows the opinion of Rab Shimon, the Oma echad gagais, vechad chatzerais, vechad karfifais. You have courtyards, you have rooftops, or other areas, a karfif which is enclosed like a Rishus Yachid. Rishus achasein lekelim sheshavsu b'seichna. It's considered to be like one Rishus you're allowed to pass over from one to another on Shabbos. So therefore, if it's found in the city, in one of these areas, you can bring the key over to the Migdal and open it up. But in the field, ein eruv eruv. But in the field, if it's found in the field, the key, so then it's not a good eruv. So this follows K'Rabbanan. This follows the opinion of the Rabbanan that say it's found in a field somewhere, which is what? A Carmelis, and you can't carry from the Carmelis to the Rishus HaYachid where you are. But Bein HaShmashis, according to Rebbe, the Issa to carry from a Carmelis to where you are is only Issa Midrabbanan. And there is no Shvus Midrabbanan. There's no shvos during Ben Hashmashis. So this that he says that if it's in a Carmelis, you can't use it for an Eruv, is following the opinion of the Rabbanan that say that even a shvos is also aser to do by Ben Hashmashis, and therefore it won't be a good Eruv.